The silent provocation. The galaxy had long grown accustomed to fear, suspicion, and ambition. In the spiraling nebulae and glittering star systems, countless empires clawed at one another for dominance. Trade routes were as often battlegrounds as they were lifelines, and alliances shifted as quickly as the orbits of the planets themselves. Amid this chaos, humans occupied a quiet corner of space, ignored, underestimated, and, by all rational measures, irrelevant. The system of Sol was unremarkable by galactic standards, a yellow star surrounded by modest planets. Earth, teeming with life, was seen as quaint, Mars, an industrial outpost, and the outer colonies, a collection of mining stations and research facilities. Humans had fleets, yes, but nothing that threatened the massive dreadnoughts of the Orion Confederacy or the warships of the Xerinth Dominion. Humans were small, solitary, and seemingly insignificant, a fact every alien intelligence seemed eager to exploit. At the Galactic Council, convened in the orbit of the neutral world Etran 9, human representatives were little more than an afterthought. Species of 10, 20, even 50,000 years of recorded history towered over humans' few millennia of recorded civilization. The council chamber shimmered with alien architecture, twisting metal and crystalline structures that defied gravity and comprehension. The air vibrated with the hum of alien technology, translating thought into sound, intent into perception. Humans, for all their cleverness, could only sit in chairs designed for alien physiologies, adapting awkwardly. It was in this charged atmosphere that the first envoy arrived. The Kralthai, a reptilian species famed for their arrogance, approached the podium with a flourish, scales glinting in the council's artificial sun. Their voice resonated through the chamber, translated by alien polyglot matrices into every known language of the attendees. And here, the Kralthai hissed, is the species that calls itself human. Small, feeble, and insignificant. We look upon you and wonder, why do you even persist? A ripple of laughter echoed across the council, some genuine, some polite. Other species nodded in agreement, recounting tales of human fragility, their slow industrial progress, their history of self-inflicted conflicts. Humans were not just weak, they were amusing. Yet, as the Kralthai sneered, the human ambassador, Elara Voss, did not flinch. Her posture was calm, measured. There was no rage, no defensiveness, only a quiet confidence that unsettled the council more than any roar could. We persist, she replied evenly, because survival is never a question of size or age. It is a question of will, of adaptability, and of understanding your surroundings. Perhaps that is what you fail to comprehend. A murmur ran through the chamber. The Kralthai's eyes narrowed, their sharp features twisting in disbelief. Few had ever dared speak to them with such composure, let alone challenge their assumptions openly. Elara continued, underestimating a species is the first mistake any empire makes. History is littered with examples, empires that counted on weakness only to crumble when confronted with unity and cunning. Remember this council, intelligence, ingenuity, and cooperation are weapons that cannot be measured by mass or age alone. Her words did not strike like a hammer, they were seeds, planted carefully. Some delegates shifted uncomfortably. The humans, so recently dismissed, had introduced a new variable into the equation, unpredictability. Where every other empire relied on hierarchy, brute force, and intimidation, humans displayed adaptability and foresight. The council moved on to other matters, but the ripple caused by Elara's words persisted. Alien envoys whispered among themselves, recounting her calm defiance and subtle challenge. Some laughed nervously, others began to reconsider their assumptions. Somewhere deep in the annals of the Kralthai High Command, the phrase human resilience was repeated, like a warning to themselves. Back in the Sol system, humans did not celebrate, they were already planning. Ships glimmered in orbital docks, scientists and tacticians huddled over star charts and simulations. The galaxy did not yet know it, but humans had been silently observing, learning, and preparing. Every insult, every dismissal, only sharpened their focus. They were small, yes, and apparently weak, but the measure of a species was not in appearances. It was in ingenuity, in courage, and in the relentless drive to survive and thrive where others feared to tread. In the coming decades, that drive would ignite sparks that no alien power could extinguish. For now, humanity waited, silent yet watchful, unbowed and unbroken. The war that would force the galaxy to kneel had not yet begun, but its first seeds had already been sown. The sparks of defiance. The whispers had spread across the galaxy. Humans were no longer just a curiosity, they were a question mark that troubled even the most confident alien strategists. Yet, in Sol, life moved with a quiet intensity, as if the coming storm was already understood by the humans themselves. Ships that had once been routine patrols now trained in maneuvers that no other species had conceived. Scientists ran simulations, not for discovery alone, but for survival and advantage. And in every council chamber across human worlds, leaders emphasized a single principle: adapt, think, and act as one. The first opportunity to test human ingenuity came unexpectedly. A Zerinth convoy, carrying critical minerals from the outer asteroid belts to a distant colony, strayed too close to human space. The convoy was massive, its security fleet 3 times larger than anything humans had deployed. By every conventional measure, intercepting it would have been suicide. Yet, the human fleet moved not with brute force, but with subtle precision. Commander Cale Arden, a strategist known for his unorthodox tactics, directed his ships like pieces on a cosmic chessboard. Smaller, faster vessels darted ahead, drawing the convoy's attention. Meanwhile, heavier cruisers emerged from hidden jump points, striking at the convoy's weakly defended supply vessels. Alien commanders had anticipated a frontal assault, humans offered none. Every human maneuver exploited assumptions, predicted reactions, and turned overconfidence into liability. The battle lasted only a few hours, but the results were decisive. The Zerinth convoy suffered critical losses and, more importantly, retreated in confusion and fear. No humans were lost, a feat that left even the most seasoned alien officers speechless. Across the galaxy, reports filtered in. Whispers became discussions. The humans, they are clever, one admiral admitted reluctantly. And they anticipate our every move. Meanwhile, within Sol, the human victory was not celebrated with pomp or spectacle. There were no parades, no triumphalist speeches. Instead, Cale Arden convened his officers and scientists. "This," he said, "is only the beginning. The galaxy assumes we are weak, but we know that intelligence, coordination, and courage can overturn any numerical advantage. We must continue to sharpen our skills. Every battle is a lesson, every enemy, a teacher." The Council on Earth, a gathering of military strategists and diplomats, worked tirelessly. Simulations ran night and day, exploring the countless permutations of interstellar combat. They examined alien psychology, supply chains, and politics with the intensity of historians studying the rise and fall of empires. Humanity's strength lay not in overwhelming firepower but in preparation and understanding. Every decision was calculated, every risk measured, and yet humans were willing to take bold chances that alien leaders would consider reckless. As the first victories accumulated, humans began to send envoys to smaller, overlooked alien factions. The diplomats spoke not with threats, but with respect and reason. "We do not seek conquest," Ambassador Elara Voss explained. "We seek coexistence, but not at the expense of our survival. Join us, or at least understand that humanity is not a species to be dismissed lightly." Many smaller factions, impressed by both human victories and their ethical restraint, began to quietly align themselves with humanity. Even those that refused to ally often hesitated to attack, uncertain of what they faced. By the end of the year, the galaxy's perception had shifted. Humans were no longer seen as weak, they were anomalies, unpredictable, adaptive, and dangerous in ways conventional power could not measure. Yet, in Sol, the victories were understood not as triumphs of strength but as early sparks of defiance. Every alien defeat reinforced the lesson humans had long known: survival is a product of unity, intelligence, and resilience, not size or age. In hidden training grounds on distant colonies, pilots practiced maneuvers that defied conventional physics. Engineers experimented with stealth technologies and adaptive weapons systems. Scientists developed predictive algorithms that could anticipate enemy strategies in real time. And throughout it all, humans maintained a code. The fight was never about slaughter or domination, it was about proving that ingenuity and willpower could triumph over arrogance and complacency. By the end of Chapter 2, the galaxy had begun to take notice. Humans were no longer a minor footnote in interstellar history, they were a rising power, subtle yet unstoppable. Every small skirmish, every deft maneuver, every diplomatic overture had shifted the balance. The seeds of a war that would ultimately force the galaxy to kneel had been sown, and the sparks of defiance burned brighter with each passing day. The universe, it seemed, had underestimated humanity, and that mistake would cost countless worlds dearly. The war ignites. The warnings had grown louder across the galaxy. Reports of human cunning, combined with their unexpected victories against superior forces, reached the ears of every major empire. Fear had replaced dismissiveness. The Kralthai High Command, the Zerinth Dominion, and the Orion Confederacy, All rivals who had once scorned humanity now saw the humans as a threat that could not be ignored. Secret councils convened, fleets were mobilized, and for the first time in centuries, the galaxy spoke in terms of total war against a single species. The humans, however, were not unprepared. Intelligence networks across the Sol system had been monitoring every alien movement, tracking fleet compositions, supply routes, and political fractures. Commander Cale Arden reviewed the latest reports aboard the flagship Aegis, his sharp eyes scanning the holographic projections of alien formations. "They assume that numbers alone will overwhelm us," he said quietly to his officers. "Let them try. We will be ready, not with their rules, but with our own." The first major engagement occurred near the Draxian Rift, a region of chaotic gravitational anomalies that few species dared navigate. The combined alien armada, thousands of ships, armed to the teeth, advanced with confidence. Humans, by contrast, deployed a fleet half their size, scattering vessels in unconventional formations. Using the rift's gravitational turbulence, they executed maneuvers that alien captains could scarcely predict. Smaller human ships darted in and out, drawing fire, while larger cruisers struck at weak points, bypassing heavily fortified areas. Every move was calculated, every feint precise. The aliens were stunned. Their superior firepower became a liability in the unpredictable environment. Human pilots adapted in real time, exploiting anomalies in ways no alien technology could anticipate. Electronic countermeasures scrambled targeting systems, stealth drones disrupted command communications. In the midst of battle, human officers coordinated flawlessly, using predictive algorithms to anticipate enemy reactions. By the end of the engagement, the alien fleet had suffered massive losses, while the human casualties were minimal. The victory was not just tactical, it was psychological. Across the galaxy, alien species began to whisper fearfully. Humans were no longer an unpredictable anomaly, they were a force that could outthink, outmaneuver, and outlast the combined might of centuries-old empires. Even minor factions, long subjugated or ignored, began sending envoys to human leaders, offering allegiance or neutrality. Humanity's reputation grew not through sheer violence, but through ingenuity, discipline, and strategic brilliance. Within Sol, the Human High Council convened. Scientists, tacticians, and diplomats worked together, analyzing not just battlefield outcomes, but alien psychology and politics. Every victory, every skirmish, became data for the next engagement. The humans had learned a lesson that no alien empire seemed to grasp: unpredictability and adaptability were more potent than any fleet or weapon. By combining technological innovation, rapid decision-making, and ethical restraint, humans turned every disadvantage into an opportunity. The war escalated. Alien empires launched assault after assault, yet every attack was met with ingenuity that defied their expectations. Human forces used decoys, misinformation campaigns, and psychological warfare to undermine enemy morale. Supply lines were disrupted, alliances strained, and internal dissent rose among alien forces. Human adaptability was a mirror, reflecting the weaknesses of centuries-old bureaucracies and rigid command structures. Yet, despite the victories, humans remained disciplined. Civilians were protected, captured enemies were treated with dignity, and destruction was precise. Every action was measured, ensuring that humanity's rise was defined by intelligence and honor, not blind aggression. This contrast, merging strategic genius with ethical restraint, magnified the fear and respect humans inspired. Aliens had grown accustomed to wars of attrition and slaughter. Humans introduced something they could not comprehend: intelligent, principled, and relentless warfare. By the end of the first year of full-scale conflict, humanity had not only survived, they had reshaped the strategic landscape of the galaxy. Entire alien fleets had been destroyed or forced into retreat, alliances had shifted, and smaller factions now looked to humans as protectors or potential allies. The galaxy was awakening to an uncomfortable truth: the humans it had once ignored were now the axis around which the future would turn. On Earth, Cale Arden addressed the fleet one final time before returning to Sol. "We have shown the galaxy our strength, not in numbers, but in mind and will. They will come at us with everything they have. But remember this: the human race thrives where others falter. Where they see boundaries, we see opportunities. Where they see weakness, we find strength. The war has only begun, and we will rise, no matter the odds." Above the Sol system, human fleets gleamed against the backdrop of stars. Their resolve was unwavering, their unity absolute, and their ingenuity unmatched. The galaxy would soon learn a lesson written not in fire or blood alone, but in intelligence, courage, and the unyielding spirit of humanity. The galaxy bows. The final confrontation loomed like a storm over the Sol system. For decades, the galaxy's greatest empires had sought to crush humanity, marshalling fleets so vast that even the stars seemed to pale in their shadow. The combined armada, the Kralthai, Zerinth, Orion, and dozens of lesser powers, advanced with the confidence born of sheer numbers. They assumed that overwhelming force alone could end humanity's rise. They were wrong. Human forces had anticipated this moment. Every jump point, nebula, and asteroid belt had been mapped, analyzed, and integrated into a complex defensive and offensive strategy. Commander Cale Arden stood aboard the flagship Aegis, flanked by human leaders, strategists, scientists, and diplomats who had guided the species through every trial. "They think they can crush us with numbers," Cale said quietly. "But they have not understood us. They have never understood humans. Today, they will learn." The battle began not with fire, but with deception. Human vessels split into hundreds of small squadrons, each moving unpredictably, each striking where the enemy least expected. Alien fleets, massive and rigid, found themselves reacting to 1,000 simultaneous threats. Predictive algorithms guided human tactics, anticipating every maneuver and countering with precision. Dreadnoughts that had once intimidated entire sectors were torn apart by coordinated strikes from ships that the aliens had dismissed as inconsequential. Amid the chaos, humans displayed a discipline that confounded their enemies. Civilians were evacuated in coordinated waves, supply lines remained intact despite attacks, communication channels remained open and secure. Human leaders adapted instantly to battlefield developments, their decisions precise and unflinching. Every move showcased a combination of ingenuity, courage, and unity, the very traits that no alien empire had anticipated. The psychological impact was immediate. Alien commanders, expecting easy victory, began to falter. Panic spread through the ranks. Fleets broke formation, and alien soldiers began to question their leaders. Even allies who had been coerced into supporting the Grand Armada wavered, some secretly aiding humans, others retreating entirely. Humanity's reputation had grown into legend, fear of them now rivaled fear of the galactic void itself. By the time the dust of the battle began to settle, human forces had emerged victorious. Entire armadas lay in ruins, their remnants scattered across the void. Minimal human casualties spoke not of luck, but of preparation, adaptability, and strategic brilliance. The galaxy had witnessed something it had never seen before, a species, considered weak and insignificant, standing unbroken against the combined might of its greatest powers, and winning. With the alien forces in retreat, human diplomats took the next step. Envoys were sent to the surviving leaders of the defeated empires. Humans did not demand surrender through threats of annihilation, they demanded respect, alliances, and adherence to principles that ensured peace and stability. "You have underestimated us," Ambassador Elara Voss said. "You assumed strength was measured by ships or weapons. You were wrong. Humanity's strength lies in unity, intelligence, and the courage to face impossible odds. The galaxy now bows, not to fear, but to reason and resolve." The defeated empires had no choice. They agreed to the terms, pledging to respect human sovereignty and to cooperate where possible. The galaxy, once fractured and ruled by fear and arrogance, was reshaped. Humanity emerged not as a tyrant, but as a guiding force, one that demanded respect, inspired caution, and offered the hope of cooperation. In the aftermath, humans did not celebrate their dominance with conquest or spectacle. Instead, they focused on reconstruction, alliance building, and exploration. Scientists began charting new regions of space, tacticians refined strategies for potential threats, and diplomats worked tirelessly to maintain fragile alliances. Humanity had proven that power could be wielded with intelligence and ethics, and that even in a galaxy ruled by ambition and violence, a species could rise through unity, ingenuity, and courage. The final scene unfolded on the bridge of the Aegis, Cale Arden gazing at the stars beyond. The war had ended, but humanity's journey had only begun. "We have shown the galaxy what humans are capable of," he said softly. "But the stars are vast. The challenges are endless. We will expand, explore, and endure. Let this be a reminder to all, never underestimate humanity." Above Sol, human fleets gleamed against the backdrop of stars. The galaxy had bent the knee, not to terror, but to resilience, intelligence, and unbreakable will. The war that had forced the galaxy to bow was over, but the legacy of humanity, the spark of ingenuity, courage, and unity, would endure far beyond the reach of any star.